Well, and we are not yet done. We're still looking at the themes and the thematic concerns, and that is in The Fathers of Nations by Paul B. Vite, how this writer has brought out evidently and conspicuously in the text the several themes and what point of support do we have to ascertain our conclusions or our judgments or assumptions. The theme of we have the plight of women in the society. The plight of women in the society. How has that theme been brought out and developed in the novel Fathers of Nations? Brace yourself, buckle up for a bumpy ride. And in case you're coming across this particular work, content, it is your first time you bumped across it accidentally, a good friend referred you to this particular content and channel, a thumbs up will do me good. A subscription would mean that you'll be the first to be notified of future uploads, and of course hit that notification bell, and of course share it with good friends also, and leave me a good, nice, soothing comment down there. It motivates, keeps me doing what I'm doing. Without that much further ado, let's dive into it. The plight of women in the society. Fathers of Nations is basically a story of four men from different parts of Africa who, despite going through different misfortunes, they try to influence the new document, Path Alpha. The big question is, where are women? The book is entitled Fathers of Nations. The title points to the masculinity and the role of these men fought in the predicament bedeviling the African continent. According to the Mothers of Nations, it speaks to the patriarchal nature of the African continent rather. Therefore, it is a challenge to the patriarchal status of Africa and pointing to the questions, the place of women in the society, and of course the possibility of them being the alternative choice. The novel is dominated by male characters ranging from the four men from different parts of Africa: Professor Kimani from the east, Comrade Melusi from the south, Pastor Chiamaka west, and Engineer Tahir north, to Dr. Afolabi, the advisor to the African Heads of State Summit and Path Alpha enthusiast, to the Voice of America personnel, Mr. Robert Manley and Mr. Nick Sentinel. Only one woman, that is Miss Fiona Mackenzie, stands out. Other women play a very minimal and peripheral role in the development of the story. Tuni dies in a road accident. Her mother Asiya divorces Professor Kimani on the road accident. Kimani on the account that Professor's vehicle's condition made their daughter use a public vehicle, service vehicle, making their only daughter be exposed to accident. Pamela comes back to Nigeria with her husband from America to meet a woman in her bedroom. This angers her and results in her filing for the divorce. 49 heads of state arrive at Banjul, Gambia, for the Heads of the State Summit. None of these heads of state is a woman. They look happy having left their problems back at home. No wonder the title of the text is Fathers of Nations and not Parents or Mothers of Nations. Probably this does not speak to the patriarchal society Africa is and that the role women play in founding these states. Ziliza, Comrade Melusi's wife, is killed in a cold blood by men believed to be Zimbabwe's rulers' operatives. Though dead, her photo and memory about her psyches Comrade Melusi to avenge against the brutal ruler. Though dead, her spirit lives on, ignites and reminds Comrade Melusi the nature of the current leadership, that is poor. Rahma Mahmoud is another woman in the text. Ms. Mahmoud is a junior to Engineer Tahir. Engineer Tahir falls in love with her and proposes to her. She says no to the proposal. This response angers him. He slaps her because of an unclear reason and circumstance. She retaliates, throwing a piece of glass on his eye. She's taken to court and the court reaches a decision of her also losing an eye through surgery. They both lose an eye. This episode speaks to some cultural practices that are outdated. Were it not for the outdated culture, Engineer Tahiri would not have slapped Mrs. Rahma Mahmoud, which led to this spiral effect of both losing an eye. It is high time some of these cultural practices are relooked into or at. Apart from the plight of women good learners, in this episode I'm going to purge two themes so that at least we have something, substantive. We don't have to have maybe a couple of few slides and then we're done. So there is also the theme of neocolonialism or imperialism. Africa is portrayed as a continent with leaders or fathers, quote unquote, who are confused and easily manipulated by people experimenting with the various ideological positions or standpoints. Probably they need support from outside to make head and tail of their discussions, deliberations, and plans that they have for the continent. With Africa states gaining independence, Africans were optimistic. They believed that the white man, quote unquote, was the impediment to their self-rule and independence. They thought all the wrongs done by the colonial masters were to be made right by the black fathers of nations. On the contrary, the situation is the same. If anything was done when the colonial masters was around, that's what you have in there. In Kenya that is, let's pause this a little bit. So in Kenya, through the eyes of Professor Kimani, the members of parliament who determined their salaries earn 10 times more than professors at universities, something unprecedented. Professor Kimani intimates that when he was joining the University of Estimates, that as a senior lecturer, professors earned more than members of parliament. Currently, members of parliament earn tenfold what Professor Kimani earns. He has the financial and economic muscle. He has 3 wives and is now taking Asiya, Professor Kimani's wife, as a 4th wife. The current crop of African leadership is not doing things worse than what the colonial masters did. Comrade Melusi says Zimbabwe has greatly changed. He helped the current leader get out Smith, that is a white man, from Zimbabwe to gain her independence. Immediately after the independence, the leader changed drastically. The Ndebele, among them Comrade Melusi, who helped him during the struggle, have become his enemies. He fired the leader of the Ndebele, nor did he appoint Melusi as a minister after having helped him. Instead, it is the Shona, the ruler stripe, that is given plumb jobs. Ziliza, Comrade Melusi's wife, is killed in the attack, orchestrated by the government operatives. Voice of America, VOA, at some point as the US policy forbade hiring non-Americans. The image was bad. Did we skip a thing? Not really. We are doing good. The Voice of America, that is at some point as the US policy forbade hiring non-Americans. The image was bad for Voice of America. Mr. Robert Manley, chief of the Voice of America Bureau, employs Ms. Fiona McKenzie to help them get as much as possible from the summit. Though she's on the ground collecting information, Mr. Nick Sentinel, a communication technician, has a silent listener which records conversation around the Seamount Hotel. He's more informed about the ongoings at the hotel. He can tell the plans and even design ways to counter those maneuvers. Mr. Robert Manley and Nick Sentinel are in charge and can trap in all conversation so long as they are over a mobile phone. Mr. Tad Longway, the guide, is an agent of colonialism. Through him, the alternative agenda of Path Alpha is a gospel that spreads across Africa from East Kenya to West Nigeria, from South Zimbabwe to North Libya, and finds its way on the summit's agenda. Through Dr. Afolabi, Path Alpha, a strategy developed and designed elsewhere by non-fathers of nations, technically finds its way on the agenda and finally is adapted amidst questions. Nick Sentinel also uses the global positioning system, that is the GPS, in determining locations of all the 4 crusaders of Path Alpha. Beyond these, he is able to tell the ongoings at Pinnacle Hotel where the Fathers of Nations are. Being attached to the Voice of America, this speaks volumes about the security of Africa as a continent. Voice of America is in control, of the airwaves in Africa. There is also a theme of disillusionment or despair as a theme in this particular novel, Fathers of Nations. We are not going to let it go like that. And it's our third, of course, theme in this episode, starting with the plight of women. We have got neocolonialism, imperialism rather, and now disillusionment, which is the loss of hope. People living in a state of denial. Africans have lost hope in their leadership. The Fathers of Nations, as they are referred to, meet at Banjul, Gambia. They plan to discuss and deliberate on a strategy, that is Way Omega, an ideology. While at the summit, another strategy which had not been looked into, Path Alpha, is plotted, and after deliberations and later a toss of coin, Path Alpha is adapted, and the African leadership is painted as a visionless, directionless leadership, a leadership full of confusion. Furthermore, summit degenerates into a fighting match. In accepting to join the Path Alpha, which is advocated by the four men representing the four corners of Africa, it is evident that Africans have lost hope in the status quo. The experiences that they have undergone do not give them the latitude to speak well of the systems that be. Though a Professor Kimani is a delusioned man, he has lost a wife to a former junior colleague at the university, that's Newborn Walomo, currently a member of parliament. He lost his only daughter, Tuni, through accident, something that would have been avoided. After the fight with Newborn Walomo, he is arrested and thereafter demoted to being just a senior lecturer position he began at when he joined the University of Nairobi. He's a man ready to take up Path Alpha strategy to at least breathe a sigh of relief from the normal order of the day. Comrade Ngobile Melusi is a shell of himself. He was in the forefront alongside the current leader in driving the white men out of the country. When his country gained self-independence, his hopes are ironically crushed by the very people that he has helped to get into power. He is not appointed a minister in the new dispensation. His tribe, the Ndebele, becomes a target community for harassment. First, its leader is not considered in the new formed cabinet government. Further, when the Ndebele people demonstrate in what they viewed as seclusion, the government sends police officers to wipe the demonstrators. Unfortunately, in the brutal attacks, Comrade Melusi loses his wife, Siliza. His business goes under necessitating his relocation to slums, which again are brought down by bulldozers sent by the government in the guise of creating room for infrastructure. Indeed, he has lost hope in anything done by the current regime, and so when the new idea of Path Alpha comes up, he readily joins the outfit and takes up with a lot of gusto, hoping against hope that this new strategy will breathe a new lease of life in his empty and hopeless spirit. Engineer Saif Tahir, after completing his studies overseas and coming back home, is quite optimistic. He is in cahoots with the Libyan leader and fully supports Fist of Allah, a group supported and funded by the ruler. Suddenly, the ruler abandons Fist of Allah in his quest to propose to Rahma Mahmoud, his junior at the weapons laboratory. He loses his eye, so does Rahma Mahmoud. Engineer Tahir feels dejected, and to cover and run away from his despair, he leaves Tripoli for Benghazi, where he leads a lonely life. With this desperation in sight, he falls prey of the new strategy, Path Alpha, and readily accepts for it. In it, he sees some hope and solace, maybe a refuge. Pastor Chamaka epitomizes despair and loss of hope. He was a reckless driver. He gets involved in an accident that miraculously turns around his life to become a pastor. Excuse me. In his second sermon, he attacks the powers that be. He is arrested and only released and banned from preaching, something that he feels is not right. With these challenges, Pastor Chamaka desperately accepts to join Path Alpha. In this new strategy lies hope for the church and the Africans as a whole. The four men from different parts of Africa are a microcosm of bigger picture of Africans, that Africans have lost hope and hence clinging to any stroke that can give them any hope. And then there is our big thank you for watching, guys. You've been a family, and I'm starting feeling like I'm getting attached. And how about this? Yeah? On the comment section, kind there, leave a comment, and that comment will really motivate and keep me doing what I'm doing. And of course, very soon I'm coming up with another community family, the ones that I call that we are one in this and partnering in this particular channel here. And if you want to partner, kindly let me know from the comment section, or you can reach me through those tiny details that are down there. That is shalomjohn@gmail.com, or you can holler me or text me through my WhatsApp contact there, and then we see how we can build ourselves into a larger community, partnering in these so that we become a voice of the voiceless out there, and we give it back to our community. Stay tuned, and cheers until we meet next time round. Stay safe. Stay safe. It's very, very important.